Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching Today I Found Out, and in the video today, the flying tank. When it comes to war, innovation is key, and World War II saw more insane ideas and weapons of war developed than perhaps any war before it. One of the more surreal was the Antonov A-40, colloquially known as the flying tank. Known in Russia as something that translates to winged tank, the Antonov A-40 was the end result of one Oleg Antonov. He was wondering how Russians could get a fully laden tank onto a battlefield without exposing a plane to enemy fire from the ground. Previous to this, they had already experimented with strapping T-37 light tanks and T-27 tankettes to bombers as a means of transporting them as early as 1935. However, both tanks were simply too small to do much damage in combat and risked an entire TB-3 bomber to put one of these tanks into battle, and it simply wasn't worth it. The Russians also experimented with simply dropping tanks, with and without parachutes, out of planes to see what would happen. As you might have guessed, that didn't exactly work out. In these cases, the crews were going to parachute down from the tank separately and then hopefully get to the tank before enemy troops were able to. As you might have guessed from this strategy, a better plan was needed. In 1940, Oleg sketched a design for a set of glider wings that could be outfitted onto a much larger tank, enabling it to fly if towed behind an aircraft that could get up to speed. Now, on paper, this was a pretty genius idea, since it solved the problem of exposing the transporting aircraft to enemy ground fire, as well as the weight limit of the TB-3 that had restricted what it could transport to very small tanks. However, it would take another 2 years and a German invasion before anyone asked Oleg to actually build and test his design. Once he did, he attached a pair of custom-built wings to a modified T-60 tank. After that tank glided down to the battlefield, the wings were designed to be ejected upon landing. If you're wondering how the tank's pilot steered the thing, that too was a work of simplistic genius. Its wings were controlled by the movement of the tank's own turret. Moving it up and down, for example, would adjust the pitch, and moving it from left to right would allow it to bank left or right. While this might sound good in theory, because of the extreme weight of the tank and the limited lift the wings could actually provide, armaments, fuel, and even armor needed to be removed from the T-60 to get it into the air for a test flight. That said, according to the Russians, the A-40 had a successful test flight, though successful might have been a bit of an overstatement. During the A-40's only flight in history, the pilot at the tank's helm was Sergei Anakin. Sergei was a test pilot by trade and had to take a crash course in tank driving prior to the actual flight. As for the flight itself, the Tupolev TB-3 bomber towing the tank had its engines overheat, and they nearly failed almost immediately after takeoff. Because of this, the TB-3 had to cut the tank free much earlier than expected. Even still, Sergei was able to glide the tank in and reportedly landed very smoothly in a nearby field. He was even able to drive the tank back to headquarters and report on the success personally. While he reported a smooth landing, it was a pretty tricky business. It required Sergei to start the tank's engines and engage the tracks before they hit the ground. Questioned about the experience after the fact, Sergei was apparently very excited about the ordeal, but was skeptical about how it would have turned out had the tank been fully loaded, as it would need to be in battle. With the TB-3 struggling to pull the slimmed-down tank, and the fact that a good number of the TB-3 planes needed to tow the contraption had been destroyed in the war, well, the project was ultimately scrapped. But that is not to say that some officials didn't see the benefit of flying tanks raining death from the sky. It was just agreed that it was a much better idea to use these bombers for more conventional purposes, like bombing things. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and do not forget to subscribe. We've got brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, check out some of the videos from the archives over there on the right. And as always, thank you for watching.